technical questions, kind of prod a little deeper to see, okay, how much knowledge do they have? Do they have the experience, and determining what level they are at technically. Sometimes if the interview is just going south, we might just skip those questions altogether. Yeah.
So I don't have anything that's going to surprise you when you come in for an interview with Edmonton Utilities. It's pretty much what you see on the job description is probably what we're going to ask you about.
For our IT positions in our software solutions group, we usually throw some riddles out there, and the hiring manager never tells me the riddle because he kind of wants to see if I'll figure it out before the student, and it happened one time, and I was really happy. But the riddle, it's not so much that you can solve the riddle in our software solutions group. We want to see your logic. We want to see how you logically go through a problem, very similar to the duck-horse situation, which I would go the one duck-sized horse. But so we do that riddle, and then what we do is we put you into a room where we remote into the computer, we have you code some things. So then we put a team of software solution team members around to see kind of how you're approaching that problem. Again, the expectation is not that you're seeing it to fruition, but we want to see how you're A, working under pressure, and B, your ability to logically think through a problem.
Good, good. I'm glad that there was some sharing of the technical questions, because I know my math students, that's going to be very important for you to prepare for. There are a few questions that have been proposed to us in mock interviews that we advise the students do not ask on the first interaction with the employer. So if any of you have advice or an example of a question that's been proposed to you by a co-op student that they should not ask you on the first meeting, please share.
I don't know that I've had a question asked that I felt like that was wildly inappropriate, but I would say so do you have any questions for us? And the answer is no. That's a big, I'd rather you ask a ridiculous, outlandish question than nothing at all.
Agreed.
I concur.
I think we're all going to say the same thing.
Looks like we're agreeing.
Yeah.
What about, is there any, we advise not to ask about money on the first interview. What is your take on if somebody wants to discuss salary and earnings potential on the first interview?
In my position, I really don't discuss that. I kind of leave it to the owners to discuss that, so I can't comment on that.
I would say I don't want to really discuss it in front of the group, but individually I happily discuss it. It's pretty standard at our office what we offer.
I'm glad that I wanted to clarify group interview. If any of you heard that term and you were a little confused, because we do teach and speak about the panel interview, but a group interview is when you are with your competition all together in a room, and you said it could be upwards of 11 candidates?
Yeah, and a panel. So
and a panel.
Basically myself, my husband, and one of our staff members will be on the panel too.
Which is unique. We haven't stressed a lot about that as an option, so I'm glad that you shared it.
Saves a lot of time.
Absolutely.
I've been through sessions where we've had 11 or 12 applicants and hired no one.
And then it's probably easy for someone to stand out as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Very good. Thank you.
So we will let everyone know what the range of our salary for our positions are, but for what it's worth, in my career, I made it a decision that I would never give the employer a salary number, and they hate that because they want to know. And the reason I did that was because as the candidate, it was my way of determining the seniority level of the position. And so I actually have a story where I went through an interview process. And as a candidate, I did ask a question. I asked them, what's a typical day like here? And I knew I wasn't going to work for the company when they answered long. And I was like, oh. And then when they asked me my salary range, I simply told them I use what you offer me as a measurement to figure out the role. So they did. They called me and I said, is that the base of a range? And they said, no, that's the offer. And I said, no, thank you. Unbeknownst to me, what was happening behind the scenes at this company is when I left the room, they said, if she's as good as we think she is, she's going to say no to this offer. Walk her down the hall to the consultants who can afford to hire her. So I said no, and sure enough, 2 days later, I got a call, and they said, so we heard you were smart enough to decline that offer and that you're worth far more. And I got a raise. Well, I got a raise from where I was at, but I got the salary that was appropriate to the level that I was seeking.
I think I'm probably a little bit unique. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority is a Crown corporation, so we actually post our salaries on every single one of our job postings. So anytime you go online and look at our job ads, the salary range is there. We don't post it for our co-op students. We're looking for co-op students when they're coming on board. We pay a fairly good salary for co-op students, but we don't want them coming on board for that particular reason. I want our students to come on board for the project. And that's usually what they're coming on for, but I want to make sure that they're committed to the project itself.
Panelists, is it okay if we stop right here for a moment? Before we move on, because it's almost time for us to transition to our next activities, could I see some hands if any students had a specific question for any of our panelists that they really wanted to make sure was asked? Don't everybody raise your hand at the same time. That's sarcasm. Okay, we have one. We have one. All right.
Hire that guy.
So if you don't mind, stand up and try your best to project your.
Should I run over
I have
with
a
the mic?
question specifically for Sarah. Given that students actually are certified to work on patients who's not actually chiropractors yet, what is like a typical day for a co-op student? Or what would we typically do in your office?
You are an assistant. So I have a chiropractic license, and I'm responsible for everybody in my office. So you do work one-on-one with patients, but you do everything from interacting with them when they come in, putting them in the right rooms, applying the right modalities, removing the modalities. My office has a lot of different modalities as well as chiropractic. We provide chiropractic care. So you're working one-on-one, hands-on for most of the day. And also part of our assessment involves EMG, myovision, and so you'd be doing myovision, so you'd be working with patients who are gowned, so we require a lot of professionalism when you're in a room with someone in a gown. You are responsible for making notations on a file, which is a legal document, so it's a lot of responsibility, and basically we have a process of interviewing as well, and we have you in for a working interview for a day to see how you're interacting with us, and then the first week we have an assessment at the end of the week, and it may or may not work out depending on your performance that week. So I would say that if you come to my office, be prepared to running shoes, scrubs are required, and but we have a lot of fun, but you have to balance fun with professionalism, and we're very patient focused. So we're interested in having a good time and having a casual atmosphere, but it's very patient focused.
Very good response. Thanks for sharing. Time? Do we have any more time? We got 5 more minutes? Okay. So I have time for my last question. Before we had our student question. Thank you for being our lone student question. We ended with what students should not ask. I want to end with, is there a question that was proposed to you by a student that you felt was very impressive? Or was there a candidate that stood out, and maybe what was unique about that candidate that forever reminds you of one of the top talent that you were able to interview?
For us, or just someone just looking at, just trying to think of past interviews over the years, over the 12, 13 years, I'm always fascinated with people who are just energetic and not over the top, can communicate well, and one of the panelists just made a mention about their self-worth. I think that goes long ways. Being confident in who you are and what you do goes long ways in my books, because I believe anything's possible. I'm always intrigued when people ask questions on about the field, and they just want to know why, right? Not just know how to do it, but they want to know why. So it makes them a better professional. So when I know it's not about just answering questions, and now they just want to become really good at what they really do. They want to be the best at what they do. then that tells me something about who they are, not only at the present level, but in the future. And for me, I know Active Body, we want to work with people who are at the best of what they do in their given domain. So that's what makes it very exciting for us.
Well, we're a chiropractic office, but I'm not offended if our co-op students don't become chiropractors. I don't think it's for everybody. My memorable co-op students have not all gone on into chiropractic, but we do still have relationships with them. You know, I remember the people who made the experience more enjoyable for me, who took the stress off me by doing their job right and enjoyed the day-to-day experience at our office, enjoyed the interaction with patients. Some of them have gone on to become chiropractors, some have gone on to medical school, some went into research. You know, everybody's different, but part of co-op, in my opinion, is finding out maybe this isn't something that you don't want to do. So yeah, we just really have enjoyed building relationships with some very special people.
If you can teach us something, so we're a technology company and computer science grads, we always think that we know best and that we're leading edge on everything because we're in IT and we're awesome. If you haven't heard the term progressive web apps, and I'm a progressive web app company and it is about to change everybody's life here in this room for apps. Apple just turned that stuff on January 9th, kind of big deal. So when I'm in an interview and you're coming into a technology company and you show me that you're on top of industry knowledge, industry experts, and you're like, hey, did you see that article that just came out in wherever, or in this developer forum, right? It's not about our websites, because the rest of us are spending time in forums, in industry best Wired magazines, whatever it is, we're trying to be on top of that. So if you can do that, that is by far going to be what gets you the job. I have to say, one of the best candidates, I just had this happen this week. I actually had somebody who's non-technical being interviewed for a non-technical role. And he went out and he read all our white papers. He learned all about progressive web app technologies. And then he took the Disney song, I Want to Be a Part of Your World, and he parodied the entire song, the whole song, I might add, with everything to do with progressive web apps. And at the end of it, we were like, we don't know how, but we will find a way to get this guy in our company because, number one, that is just impressive. It was the research that got me, but I will say it was the first actually having somebody literally sing for their meal.
That's definitely impressive. I know I've had a co-op student who actually had saw in our out in the news that we had awarded a new contract on the bridge early works, and they came in to the interview and said, "Hey, I heard you guys awarded this contract. Congratulations! Can you tell me more about the scope of the contract?" So it was great that they had been keeping up to date on what was going on, literally 24 hours before, and they wanted to know more. So I love that show of that initiative of asking the question, but definitely showing that they're really interested in the project.
Panelists, I'm sorry, we're going to have to end it there because it is 10 o'clock. I know, and Robert's like, I really wanted to say something.
Robert's story?
Yeah, oh, was it a good one?
No.
Okay, but you'll be happy. Part of the reason we're going to wrap it up is because as our guests, and we're very grateful that you're spending this Saturday morning with us, confirming a lot of the messages that we've shared with you throughout the semester, but allowing them some more detailed insight into the professions that they're going to be working in their near future. We want to first say thank you, so if we can get a round of applause for our panelists.